After you leave structured education, you have basically finished the tutorial stage of life. You're no longer confined by this curriculum or this structure that is laid out for you. And this means that you have a lot of freedom now, but you're also likely to get overwhelmed because school is such a small thing. Like they define everything for you. It's a tiny box of the infinite possibilities that are otherwise available. You go, you show up to classes or lectures, you study this specific material, your teachers set you homework, everything is just laid out super nicely, and you don't really need to do much thinking for yourself. Like the structure is there, you're just following along. It's all been laid out for you. But after structured education, nobody's laying out anything for you anymore. It's all you. You're going to do everything, especially if you want to keep growing and evolving and just becoming a better person. You're going to have to set up all of these structures. You're going to have to choose which problems you want to solve. You're going to have to figure out what you're doing every single day. Nobody's going to tell you these things anymore. And so this is a very real skill. This skill of basically having infinite possibilities and collapsing them into finite sequential tasks to achieve a certain outcome. That skill is just not taught at school or basically like anywhere in the world. Like, how do you actually figure out which problems to solve and then go ahead and solve those problems, execute on them in a way that actually makes sense and makes progress? And so after I dropped out of university, I've just been leveling up this skill the whole time. And I've tried so many different things. And now I found a system or a way that I go about it that just makes such a difference. It means that I don't feel overwhelmed nearly as much. Like, I very, very rarely feel overwhelmed. And it also means that if there's like a goal that I have, I know how to get there, or I can break it down very, very easily. This doesn't mean that I always achieve the goal and go straight there. That also takes like a different set of skills like self-resilience, discipline, all of that stuff. And that's a work in progress. But in terms of the clarity and the direction, it's just so much better. And so I'm going to explain like how you can reduce your overwhelm and gain this clarity and actually develop this skill. First, we need to understand what overwhelm is. And we need to understand the fundamental tension within the human mind. The problem is that the imagination that you can have is infinite. There's an infinite number of ways you can imagine the world and yourself and different possibilities. But your body, your time, is finite. You only get one moment at a time, and you have a finite number of days on this planet and a finite energy that you can spend on each day. And so this tension is what is causing the overwhelm at a fundamental root level. There's a mismatch between your capacity for imagination and your physical reality. And the antidote to this overwhelm is actually your ability to sit with uncertainty and just this infinite possibility space that's always available to you in the form of imagination. And so when you can sit there and be okay with not knowing what the fuck's going on, paradoxically, you're able to know and feel confident in what's going on. It's very paradoxical. But at the root of overwhelm is this desire to control and this desire to basically, it's like a perfectionism in a way. It's the desire to make sure everything is in order and is in a set, confined space. Set parameters that are just like neat. And we've kind of been trained to be like this from school. Like nobody teaches us thinking outside the box. Like people throw around that term, but nobody actually knows what it means. Thinking outside the box means you're resting in infinity and you are choosing how to basically divide this infinity up into problems that are satisfying for you to solve. I know it sounds kind of fucking crazy and very high level, but this is at the root of what's actually going on. But don't worry, we're going to bring it down into something very, very practical. So, practically, what does this look like? So, I've been developing this, over the last couple years. And at the start, what it felt like was just like, I don't even know where the fuck to begin. Like, my head just hurts. I'm confused. I'm disorientated. I don't even know how to solve this massive problem called life. Like, how do I figure out what job I want to do? How do I do all of this stuff? And so the start was just super confusing. And so the first practical tip I would say is when you're in that state of confusion, feel into it. Feel kind of more comfortable with it. See what it feels like to be confused and overwhelmed. Like, where do you feel the sensations in your body? And so the more you rest in that, the more you grow in your tolerance and your capability of resting in that state. And you'll notice that the more capable you are of sitting with that, the less it stresses you out. And then this alone is good. And this, if you took this all the way to the end, this would kind of just solve all your problems. But practically, what can you do in the meanwhile as well in terms of actual techniques? It's to write down everything that you're thinking and feeling and all of your doubts and your worries, to not just keep everything bottled up in your head. That's one of the biggest things that just completely transformed my ability to kind of process this overwhelm. Write down everything that you're thinking and feeling, and don't do this in a perfectionist way. Get comfortable just literally letting everything out exactly as it's presented to you in your mind, without trying to modulate it or change it in any way. Just write it all out. And you'll notice that there's just such a relief. There was this tension building up in your head, and you just wrote it all out onto the paper, and now you can kind of just see this jumbled mess, but it's kind of on the paper, so it's a bit neater, and the mental load is kind of just dissipated. And so you see all of this stuff, and now you're in a better state to actually start planning. So you write down your different desires, your problems, your concerns, the things you want to do. For example, maybe you're super stressed about finding a job or work. You write down all of the different stresses that you have. And then once that's out of the way, the emotional anxiety is out of the way, then you can start doing the second thing, which is breaking down the problem into sequential tasks that will achieve your desired outcome. And so step by step, this is a skill as well that gets developed more and more you do it. You have this problem and this kind of jumbled mess of emotions, and you think to yourself, okay, how can I solve this problem? And then you start thinking about what are the most important tasks and kind of prioritizing them and writing them out. Maybe you don't write them in order straight away, and you just write them out, and then you kind of mix and match and see which one's more important, which one depends on the other tasks. And then you just create this list, and your life is going to appear one moment at a time. And so if you just do one task at a time, and you really get good at this skill of breaking things down into specific tasks, you just knock off all of those tasks, and then you get to that desired outcome. In my life, for example, I was 62 kg, right? At my height. And breaking that, I wanted to gain muscle, right? I wanted to gain a bit more muscle. And so I break that task down. Just very simply, it's what do you do to gain muscle? You have to, first and foremost, the most important thing is you need to eat food. You need to eat more food. So for me, around 3,200 calories I need to eat to gain weight. And so that's step one. Task one is every day I need to eat 3,200 calories. What's the second thing that you need to do? You need to work out. And these are the fundamentals. And then sleep is also another thing that's really key. But the two fundamentals is you need to eat and you need to work out. And so you see that problem just gets broken down into two simple tasks. But you can do this with much, much more complex tasks as well. And you'll get better and better and better at doing this. And it will be crazy. Because once you know you can do this and once you've done this a couple times, you'll realize that it's not a big deal. If somebody comes to you with like an undefined problem and they're kind of confused about it, you can kind of absorb that information and break it down easily because you've done it before and you know how it kind of works. And so this frees you from so much overwhelm and stress that it's actually mind-blowing. And again, it's a very real skill that you can develop and that you will develop naturally by living as someone who wants to grow and evolve. One last thing before I end this video. Perfectionism will be the death of this whole process. Perfectionism is basically the villain in this story. If you have a perfectionist mindset, you're going to struggle so much because you're not going to be able to write down your plans, even on paper, because you're just going to have to figure it out in your head. You're going to feel like, okay, I need to figure it out first and then write it down. But this is not it. You need to just get comfortable writing things in a messy way. You need to be okay with the uncertainty and the confusion and the not knowing. And when your emotional tolerance for this stuff increases, you stop being a perfectionist. A perfectionist is somebody who is not able to tolerate uncertainty and confusion. That is what perfectionism is. It's literally that. And so they have to figure things out before they even do them. And so their ability to do things is extremely limited. So just really watch out for perfection. The tasks that you write, the journals or the mind dumps that you do, just see any perfectionist tendencies that you have. And just see that, oh, fuck, I'm just scared of like feeling things right now. That's why I'm being a perfectionist. And slowly and steadily kind of just dissolve that tendency that you have. Because you're not going to be able to problem solve as a perfectionist. I'll just tell you this now. And so really, really internalize what I just said there and practice it for yourself. So that's everything for this video. Hopefully it was helpful and hopefully it made sense. If you want help with life and just solving those problems and getting direct coaching on how you can actually achieve your goals, check out my link down below. And as always, peace and love.